Present arms. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please have a seat. And we will ask that you join us in a moment of silence. All right, thank you all very much. Council members, you all have the minutes from our August 23rd meeting. There was a lot of discussion in that meeting. Did what was presented pretty much follow your recollection as to what took place? As such, do we have a motion to receive the minutes and approve them as submitted? So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay. At this time, we will open the floor for citizen comments. We ask you if you have comments about matters for the public this evening to come on down to our podium. Be sure to state your name for the public record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. We'll open the floor now. Seeing no one coming forward, we will go on and close the citizen comment portion of the meeting. And as there were no comments, there is no council response. At this time, we do have the honor to celebrate one of our officers in the K-9 program with Radford Police. State laws came into effect on July 1st that have changed the K-9 program. And as such, we have had several officers K-9 officers that will be leaving service with us. Xander has been with the city for 6 years and specializes in drug enforcement. He'll leave the department to work with another agency where his training skills can be better utilized. Chief Dodson, if you'll come on down front, I'm sure you have some additional thoughts as that as well.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I really appreciate the opportunity here tonight to be able to recognize one of our important officers within our department, and that's K-9 Xander and Master Police Officer Tuttle. You guys remember Max and Duke. Several months ago, we had to retire them due to the law change, as you mentioned, Mayor, but I just can't stress the importance of these canines and how they help to keep the community here in Radford safe, but also the impact that they've had in the entire New River Valley. And in that resolution, you'll read that K-9 Xander, he's been deployed here in the city of Radford and all the surrounding counties, but we're grateful for his service. He's a little different than Duke and Max. He's still young. He can still find marijuana, so we're looking to get him to another department where he can do that. So just appreciate your time tonight recognizing him, and I have a plaque. And
before you present that plaque, may I read our resolution, and then we can do all the presentation at one time. This is a resolution declaring K-9 Officer Xander retired from service to the Radford City Police Department. Whereas K-9 Officer Xander is a 6-year-old Belgian Malinois serving the Radford City Police Department since 2017, and whereas K-9 Xander began his working career in Radford with Officer Jenkins from 2017 to 2019, and whereas Officer Tuttle began training Xander in March of 2020, and they became certified together in June of 2020. And whereas in the short year they were together, K-9 Xander and Officer Tuttle recorded over 200 hours of training and over 40 deployments. And whereas K-9 Xander has also aided multiple jurisdictions, including the town of Pulaski, Montgomery, and Pulaski County, and the Radford Arsenal. And whereas no value can be placed on the impact K-9 Xander has had in our community, and whereas K-9 Xander will be retired from service to the Radford City Police Department, but will be relocated to another agency where he can continue to serve due to his young age and high drive. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Radford City Council of Radford, Virginia, that K-9 Officer Xander is hereby declared retired and commended for his years of service to the Radford City Police Department. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this proclamation. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Chief, do you want to read your plaque for Xander?
Yep. It says, presented to Officer James Tuttle and K-9 Xander, thank you for your dedicated service to the Radford community and the Radford City Police Department. Our community is safer because of your teamwork and service.
Thank you so much. And I think Officer Tuttle and Xander deserve a round of applause. Hang on, Jenny, I'm coming down with the proclamation.
Where's he going? Prospect between Georgia and Alabama right now. Great.
Thank you for all your work
Thank
with
you.
Xander. We appreciate it. Thank you to Xander. Thank you, Chief. We also have a special recognition for one of Radford's primary businesses in downtown for the last 35 years. This is a proclamation recognizing Garrett's and Meg's, and Garrett and Meg Weddle are here this evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening. This business has been on Main Street as Garrett's and Meg's since 1986 and has been a staple and foundation of downtown. Before that, Copenhaver's was, of course, down there for many years, and we do have a proclamation I'd like to present this evening. Whereas Garrett's and Meg's was founded in 1986, when Garrett and Meg Weddle purchased Copenhaver's menswear on Main Street in Radford, and whereas upon completion of renovations and stock modifications, Garrett's menswear opened, and whereas in 1992, Meg's specialty women's wear was established, filling the niche which was missing in the Radford area. And whereas together, both shops quickly grew to become a cornerstone business on Radford Main Street. And whereas in 1996, Garrett decided to branch out into real estate while Meg took over the day-to-day operations of the business. And whereas in 2003, Garrett purchased the buildings 2 doors up from the original store, allowing for expansion and a grand reopening after a year of remodeling and historic renovation. And whereas this location is where the store is today, and whereas today Meg's Specialty Women's Wear has grown into one of the premier women's clothiers in the New River Valley, and whereas Garrett's and Meg's has long held a reputation for outstanding customer service and satisfaction, and whereas Garrett's and Meg's remains a staple shop on Main Street in Radford, servicing citizens and visitors throughout the region. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Radford that Garrett's and Meg's is hereby recognized for their years of service and dedication to the City of Radford as they celebrate their 35th anniversary year. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this proclamation. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And how about a round of applause for Garrett and Meg? We're going to ask that you all come forward, and I'd like to present you with this proclamation. You know, 35 years in business is certainly no small feat, and you all have done an amazing job by building community around your business, and we are so thankful for all that you have done and all you continue to do.
Thank you.
Do you all have anything you want to say this evening? You're more than welcome to.
Just thank you to everyone on the council. I really appreciate it. In the city of Radford, each one of you in so many ways have contributed to our success, and we really appreciate that. And I do want to point out the folks that have come from the store.
Please do.
There is Ann Craig, who, if she can wave her hand or stand up, and Donna Strickland, and then Kathy Mitchell, all have come from the store tonight, and we just are
Would you all like to come up and we can do one more picture? We'll get the whole group up here. And we are thankful because it does take a whole community to make a store like this work, too.
And a special thanks to my husband for years and years ago in 1986, I think when he was 16, I think I was
We'll go with that, right?
Exactly, where he had the bravery and the smarts and to figure out how to do it and how to open the store. And
Absolutely.
so just a great applause for him.
Absolutely.
So, yes. Everybody here?
Well, and again, we just say thank you and congratulations and many, many more years. You know, it does take businesses and investment like this to make a community work. And we say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. Congratulations. Congratulations, my friend. Absolutely.
Oh, and our son Joe, yes.
Hey, Joe.
And Mom come home late at night. Yes.
There you go. The suit came from Garrett's, so there you go. We are going to make a slight adjustment to our agenda this evening. I don't believe the commander was able to join us from the Arsenal, and so we will be sure to invite him back again so that we can have that introduction and participation. But at this point in time, oh, and I do also want to mention that we are moving the Life Skills Camp out an additional week, the report on that. So, yep, second meeting in September, and we want to say thank you to Sheriff Armentrout, his staff, the entire community for pitching in, everybody who gave prizes and helped with that. It was a wonderful event, and we'll hear more about that in just a couple of weeks. Okay, and as such, we are going to move on with a public hearing for a vacation of the right-of-way of Harvey Street. Kevin Entrican, a property owner at 300 9th Street, has requested that Harvey Street be vacated from 8th Street to 9th Street. This section of street has never been opened due to a steep slope on the southern end. The applicant has paid the processing fee. A public hearing is required before we move forward in this process, and it was advertised, we first scheduled it in July, it was advertised appropriately, and the adjoining property owners were notified. So at this time, we will open the floor. If anybody has any comment regarding the public hearing, we do have some written comments, and I will share those after we have the public portion of the meeting. And please state your name for the record.
Hi, Council. My name's Kevin Entrican. I'm actually the one, and just for correction on the description that you read, it's actually between 9th and 10th Street.
Okay.
And it's actually to stop short at the alleyway, which was the discussion that I had with, city engineer at the time. So I just want to make that correction, just for the record.
Okay.
The reason for the right-of-way, at least on our side of things, is for expansion. For the side yard, basically, of my adjoining property between us and a neighbor. It's been a property that I've maintained for the 6.5+ years that I've lived here, and it's for an expansion, basically to the side of my house to keep up with the growing or increase of kids in the house, honestly. So, we're relatively close to the property line now. But we do intend to maintain at least a right-of-way easement, and that's been discussed, obviously, because of some potential power access and things like that down that side of the property as well. So,
Okay.
those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak during the public hearing? Yes, come on down. Be sure to state your name for the record. And you can adjust the mic so that we can all hear you and the folks can hear you online as well.
May I take off my mask?
You may.
Oh, thank you. Okay. My name is Nancy Kolb, and I own the home at 207 10th Street, and I own the home at 301 10th Street. So I did receive the notification, and I would prefer that it remain in city hands, and because it is used quite a lot as a public footpath. 10th Street, as you know, is very busy and has no sidewalks. And so essentially, I and my renters would like it to stay public, and at least one other neighbor also feels that way. And there may be another complication in that I just realized this morning that the second set of paperwork I got, when I went through it and got to the very last page, it was meant to be signed by Juanita Long, who has the other property involved. So I don't know to what extent Juanita has ever had any paperwork to look at, sign, or approve or disapprove.
Well, thank you. We'll be sure to check on that.
Okay. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone else here to speak this evening regarding this public right-of-way vacancy? Okay, I will read the letter. We did have a comment from Ms. Kolb, but since you presented this evening, we won't continue with that. And I believe we had an additional letter, but that's not included here in my packet, so. Will you read that for me, Jenny? Do you have it in the email?
Email from Jay saying that Billy Webb at 303 10th Street, I don't have my mic on, I'm sorry. Billy Webb at 303 10th Street called and wanted his objection on the record. He'll be sending an email later this week to provide to council.
Okay. Is there anyone else here who would like to comment on this request? Seeing no one else coming, we will close the public hearing portion of the meeting and move on with additional business. Thank you all very much. This time, we do need to address our old business, and first on the list is the American Legion proposal that was presented. So our American Legion building is a historic structure, 90 years old, on West Main Street, and is in need of improvements. The roof is the most essential component, but bathrooms, HVAC, cosmetics, and additional pieces are also a part of that. At our last meeting, we had an extensive discussion about an initial proposal for the roof replacement, and at that time, Mrs. Foster wanted to see if there was a possibility we could get additional quotes and find out a little bit more about what the actual cost might look like before we make a decision as to how council might choose to move forward. So at this time, do you have anything you want to present on that?
I have a lot that I need to present to council. The first thing is I wanted to make sure, I know that I keep alluding to the different aspects that this building has served our community, and I keep adding a few more. So I have a few more things I wanted to add to the list. Not sure if I've mentioned them all before. So some of the ways this building has been utilized in our community: they've had chamber meetings there, they've had military drills, St. Jude's Catholic Church has met there. It served as a courthouse. They think the dates are between 36 and 38. They'd almost be certain. So it served as a courthouse in our community when the one that we were using suffered loss from a fire. Community dances, wedding receptions. There was a dance school, Long Way Home, rehearsal hall. It was a voting precinct. It was also a recruitment facility for the ammunition plant. So just a few more on top of the other things that I've mentioned. So just to go right into the meat of things, I had discussed that I felt like we needed to just get a few more proposals for the work since the cost had increased exponentially. So I did meet with K&J, Roanoke Roofing and Sheet Metal, NRV Roofing, Sam's Brothers, and I did speak with Crockett Home Improvements, who gave us the initial proposal. So I have received 4 proposals. I've also, like I said, spoke with Mr. Crockett and had some things added. The first proposal that we had received in the amount of $45,795, upon further review, I was a little concerned because I didn't see the soffits, gutters, downspouts, fascia, the fascia boards, and wrapping of the fascia. So I did ask that that be added back to it because it was not included in this price. So just for some good news, and I did reach out to the individual council members because I knew that everyone would be joyous about this. One of the large expenses that had been added to us was asbestos removal on that roof. So not only do they have to remove it in a very specific way, but it also has to be sent to a dump, and there's fees involved, so, and there's only specific places that will even receive it. And meeting with one of the gentlemen that I was getting up the proposal for, they had mentioned that the landfill that would accept it was in West Virginia, so you got a bit of a drive to take this asbestos. And as luck would have it, that individual who owns it happens to be a close personal friend of mine. And so, not being too proud to lean on a friend on occasion, I did contact him. I explained the importance of this particular project to me personally. He did come and meet with me as well and looked at the building. To give you just an example of some of the work that he does, he primarily does demolition. So if you're familiar with the mall area in Christiansburg and the area across the street that has been demolished, that's one of his projects. So just to kind of get to the punchline of this, it raised our proposal. Once we realized we had asbestos, it looked like probably between $25,000 and $30,000. He is willing to do it for us for free.
Which is amazing.
So he will bring his crew in. It'll be 6 people, 3 days. They're licensed, trained, and of course we'll give you all the credentials. They will remove the roof. They'll work with whomever we select to do the roofing, because as it's exposed, it'll need to be covered. And then he will dispose of it in West Virginia in his site. So that's huge. And I did a happy dance and a lot of tears. So, because that really, sometimes those costs can be the difference between make it or break it. So I had to celebrate with all of the council members who also, their hearts in this as well. So that's the good news. Some other good news, because I like the good news first. And really, I think that's all I have tonight. So to give you guys an idea of the cost, and I will make sure that everyone gets this, gets a copy of the proposals. So when I spoke with Mr. Crockett, I did ask for some things to be added. I asked for the asbestos remediation, removal to be taken off. So now the proposals are as follows. Crockett Home Improvements went from $45,795 to $45,875. Sam's Brothers will do it for $14,835. NRV Roofing is looking at $6,802. Roanoke Roofing and Sheet Metal is at about $12,142. So there's only one that I did not get anything back on. So it looks like we have substantial savings. What I will do is I will give this all to you so you can make sure that it's all apples to apples and make sure everything's covering the same. But I was very specific when I outlined what this all should cover. So basically what these are mainly covering is the labor, because Home Depot has been very generous to give gift cards that will cover, really everyone was in agreement, pretty much the extent of the materials that are needed. So I will make sure to pass along all of these to everyone for your perusal. Make sure let me see the front one of that.
How about this? Why don't we do a copy to put into the minutes and to
Yes,
pass to
most
everybody? Is that
definitely.
okay?
Yep, and I'll definitely.
Because I think there's multiple
Here,
pieces here. Hold on.
take that.
There you go. Oh, gosh, yeah. No, this is Herculean effort in 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get done, so, thank you. There you go.
I don't know. I know. Yeah, so anyway, so there's some good news. Some other little kind of interesting points that I just wanted to share with you guys briefly. One of the things that was of great concern to me when I'm in the building is our veterans have a lot of amazing documents. They have some amazing photos, even of the downtown, when the downtown consists of about 3 buildings. So they have done really a pretty amazing job keeping paperwork from 1918. They have news articles, just an array of historical documents that are important to the city. And so a lot of them are getting damaged. There's some mold. I did ask that the commander that I bring Scott Gardner in from the Heritage Foundation and a board member and him come in. They looked at what they had. They are interested in some of these historical documents, and they want to preserve them appropriately. Everyone, all the members of the Legion are thrilled about this because they're worried about losing this part of our history. So tentatively, as I spoke with the commander today, tentatively what we're looking at is before their next meeting, which is the first Thursday of the month, we'll probably meet at 6 o'clock at the Glencoe Museum. They're going to see how Scott's been preserving other things. We will then go over to the American Legion, and we will look at, Scott and I are going to go with some board members and set on a table the documents that we think are important, that they're willing to preserve and feel like they can preserve. At that point, the American Legion members will be able to see what they're looking at taking. If everyone's in agreement, they're going to remove it, and they're going to start the preservation process for these documents. So just a little bit of, this is always a Pandora's box, I swear, with this. So another kind of interesting point is there's a safe in the building that has been there as long as any member can remember. They have absolutely no idea what's inside of it or how to get into it, but there's a lot of curiosity. They really have no idea. It could be absolutely empty, or it could be maybe the answer to all of our dreams. Who knows? So what we're thinking of doing, not today or tomorrow, I'm probably going to let's get this first, but what we're looking at doing is maybe doing a few estimates on what it would cost to professionally open it, because the safe in and of itself has some value. They can sell it. So we're going to see what it would cost to professionally get it opened, and then maybe do a GoFundMe where people in the community could chip into this, and then we could have a big unveiling, and it may be open, and it may be like,
Al Capone's
like
vault,
Geraldo,
yeah.
maybe like, no, maybe nothing, but who knows? But it would be fun, and I know the executive director of the chamber has reached out and said that he would love to help promote that and to get some community involvement. So that's another small thing on the back burner. Another interesting point is Mr. Lusk, who is doing the asbestos removal, his main job is demolition. So as we were walking around the building, and he also said it was an amazing building, and even though he likes demolition, he felt very strongly this building was worth saving. But he looked at the corner and he said, well, you have a time capsule here. I said, no, I don't think we know that. And interestingly, the American Legion members, they were unaware of it too, because it's not absolutely noticeable until you look at it. So it says, it was erected in 1928. You could clearly see it's mainly in marble, not the other type of cement that it's built from or the bricks. So there is a time capsule behind the building, or in the corner of the building. So at some point, what we had discussed is once we get the water remediation done, again, looking at a community event where we can have an unveiling, open that up, and at that point, get a list of people that want to donate or start volunteering to get that community interest back geared up. And what's behind that? Door number 3, we have no idea. It'll be a fun surprise for all of us. And last but least, we did have an opportunity, and I spoke with the commander again today about the memorandum of understanding that we were talking about, that, with the community investing in this building, right now, conceivably, they're going to be using it one day a month. So how do we utilize this building to a better capacity for the community and also, for the members? So he brought up 6 points, and I'm just going to, bring them up to you guys as he brought them up to me. He said one thing they'd really like is they would like to have blood drives through the American Red Cross. It's one thing they would really like to host. They also would like to see a greater presence of patriotic ceremonies, and they would like to host those as well. Couple questions they had to us, and one I don't remember ever mentioning, but I still feel like it's valid since he mentioned it, is how much storage does the city want in the building? And I wasn't sure that we had anticipated using it as storage at all. So I didn't want to speak on council's behalf on that. The other question, and the commander wasn't exactly sure where it was necessarily going with this, but he said maintenance ongoing, is there anything going to be covered by the city ongoing? And I told him that was, we weren't looking at maintaining the building long term. you know, we're looking at remediation of the water. And then the other thing is, they would like us to, as a council, kind of determine what some other uses are that we would like to see it be utilized. If there could be events there, or, you know, fundraisers, whatever the case may be, they would like to get an idea from us what we want to do there as a city, what our vision is of as a city, what we might hold. Another kind of offshoot of that was, they had mentioned if we did anything that was profitable, would they get a percentage of the revenues? So that was the conversation with the commander today after we spoke about the memorandum of understanding. So.
Well, thank you, and first of all, thank you for this amazing effort over the last 3 weeks. That has just been stunning to get that kind of donation, the quotes and that information. The meeting that you were referring to on August 31st, first Ms. Foster and I met with the commander and Vice Commander Jackson, and Ms. Foster presented what she had at the time, which has since expanded, and then she went with Mr. Gardner and Ms. Wagaman to look at the facility and the historical artifacts. Mr. Burress joined the meeting, and then he and I talked with the commander a little bit about some of the things that I had been researching on how other communities are doing this. So one of the challenges is American Legion buildings across the nation in many communities have fallen into disrepair. As memberships age, as the structures age, it's been anywhere from 80 to 110 years that most of those buildings exist. Some communities have torn them down and replaced them through fundraisers and other grants. Some communities have restored, and there have been a variety of things. There have been several different options. Some were directly from community development block grant funds. And typically when that was the case, there was some public need that was being met with the facility. In many of the communities, food insecurity was being tackled through the facility, and whether that was a gathering place for canned food drives, a soup kitchen, different things like that. Here in Radford, some of those things are handled a little bit differently, as we have a home for our Bobcat Backpacks program at the Presbyterian Church in West Radford. And our Daily Bread, our soup kitchen, is managed now at Longway Brewing on 2nd Street in Radford. And so we were looking for other options. One of the pieces that came out was some communities have utilized spaces like this as temporary homeless shelters in the extreme weather conditions, extreme heat and cold. One of the challenges we have in Radford is that has been an ongoing concern, as we don't have such a facility in this community. Now, whether that's the right fit or not for this, I don't know. We do know that a number of our veterans struggle with homelessness at times, and at present they either have to go to Christiansburg or Roanoke to receive service. That's a little bit of a challenge for us to consider, and this is maybe a couple of days a year over a period of time. And again, that's just an idea that could be a potential, but if we're looking for a community service, the Red Cross component, some of the other pieces, we even talked about some local veterans food insecurity fundraising that could potentially work with there and go from there. Onassis, I know you went to the meeting on September 2nd, I believe, a couple days after this meeting. Is there anything else you wanted to share from that meeting?
Actually, the 6 points that Jesse spoke to are the same things we covered at the meeting. You know, the questions were in terms of use of the building by the city, if there was an MOU established, the length of the MOU, if an MOU were to be established, and then, of course, any profit sharing. If the city is to use the building and receive profit, is there any profit to be carried over and shared by the American Legion? So great articulation of those 6 points we covered. So.
And I think one of the complicated things when we talk about length is once we complete phase 1 of the project that the money that's requested is going for, the facility may not be in the condition to host the other things that might be part of the MOU. So a lot of that depends on what phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, whatever that looks like, to get us to an operational status that would then allow for Red Cross blood drives, whatever it happened to be that might be there. And so I think that's the big unknown right now, is what does that timeline look like if we were able to approve one of our quotes, by next meeting, and then asbestos remediation and some of the removal could take place October, November, whatever that time frame looked like, and a new roof hopefully by winter season, what do things look like from there? And so I think that's part of the challenge we face. So I think first steps moving forward, first of all, holy cow, we got to process all this amazing information and need to figure out exactly what we have and what we could potentially act on as a council. But the second part is hammering out what this MOU might look like. And I think part of that might be best accomplished by having a work session where we can invite our veterans to come in. We can try to perhaps create a general framework and then make some adjustments to that. But time is of the essence to do that. And I know all council members would probably like to at least participate in that conversation. For us to legally be able to do that, we have to gather in a common place, advertise the meeting, and have a work session to make that happen. Does that sound like a reasonable approach to move forward? Okay. So first and foremost, we need to analyze what we have from the quote standpoint so we know what we're talking about from money to go from there. Second piece is to schedule this work session. We've got a lot of work sessions coming up. We have a lot of work to do. So this may have to be on an off day. I'll get with Jenny. We'll see if we can come up with a proposal. We'll ask all the particulars to be involved. And really, because it's an open work session, anyone who's interested that would like to come certainly may. And then we can do a little bit of work maybe to get a general framework started, pass that around to everybody so that we at least have some knowledge before we come to the work session. Number 3, I did reach out. I had requested at this meeting, and then I requested when we met with the commander and vice commander, would it be okay to reach out through social media and other sources to see exactly what other resources we might have. They even mentioned, someone had said someone might be able to help with HVAC or other things along that line. The response has, again, been overwhelming. We've had a lot of people reach out that said absolutely they'd like to do something. No skilled labor has officially been offered in terms of I'm a plumber and I want to do all the plumbing, I'm an electrician, I want to do that. But we've had a number of people who would like to do something. The property needs something in addition to the roof. So I would propose, once we get a schedule hammered out for what demolition construction so that it's safe can look like, that maybe we have a property cleanup day where we could invite some folks to join us. In a perfect world, we could accomplish all this by November 11th, which is Veterans Day, and that would be wonderful. But weeds need to be pulled, branches need to be cut. There's all kinds of stuff that could be done that are not so much on the structure itself, but could enhance the property to get it in better shape so that once the roof is done, we're at a level up from where we are right now. If that sounds okay, that's still a little bit soft right now because we got to figure out this other timeline. But I think that would make sense, and that can engage some of the folks. I think also that would be an opportunity to advertise that we want to do more with a phase 2 and a phase 3. That could then potentially get additional folks who say, I'm a plumber, I would love to donate my time if you can get some of the equipment. I'm an electrician, I'll be glad to do a once-over and help you with that, and we can go from there. Does that sound like a reasonable path for moving forward? All right, great. Thank you all very much. Any other thoughts for the good of the order?
Well, I just want to take a moment again to just extend my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to Danny Lusk for volunteering to asbestos removal, and also just let council know that every single roofing company that come out, they all fell in love with the project and the building, and most of them had the opportunity to meet a couple or more of our Legion members that would come out and talk with them and share as well. So I will tell you that I know that a part of these proposals have been some heartfelt generosity extended.
Absolutely.
So I just want to give everyone that come out just a real heartfelt thanks for caring about this project as much as we do.
Well, and to those taxpayers in the room, please know that this is part of that due diligence of saying, this is an incredibly important structure to the community. How do we best utilize the money? And again, praise to you and praise to everyone who came out to bid and to look at the property and to help you have a greater understanding of what was there, because that makes a huge difference. And certainly these quotes are different, so that's helpful. Okay, any further thoughts? We will move on. Earlier this evening, we did have a public hearing regarding the vacation of the right-of-way on that section of Harvey Street between 9th and 10th Street. At this time, if council would like to move forward, the next step for us is to, if we choose to appoint a board of viewers who can go out and review the property and give us their opinion as to whether or not they think this is in the public interest, whether this would best serve the community, and to move forward from there. Do we have a motion to appoint a board of viewers? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no votes, we will move forward by saying, if anyone has any nominations, we can pass those along, and I would like to charge Mr. Ridpath with maybe reaching out to those individuals, if that's acceptable to everybody on council.
I do have a nomination. I've spoken with Jennifer Bondurant, and she has expressed interest and a willingness to serve. She would like to have some additional information, but I would nominate Jennifer Bondurant and ask that you all reach out to her.
And any additional names, we can certainly pass along. If anyone has any additional names tonight, we could do that. Okay. All right. Let's move on to new business now. We do need to talk a little bit about the property at the recreation, adjacent to the recreation center off of George Street. This is a resolution that approves and authorizes a fifth renewal and extension of a lease agreement between the City of Radford and the Radford High School Foundation. Since 2004, there's been an agreement in place to establish a baseball field on this site, which actually many years ago was a landfill, could not be constructed upon for methane gas coming off the property, but it makes an excellent outdoor field where all of that can simply be vented into the atmosphere. The original lease was in 2004 for 5 years. It was renewed in 2008 under new conditions for another 5-year term, renewed in 2014 for 1 year, in 2015 for 2 years, 2017 for 3 years, and that expired December 31st, 2020. There was an additional request to extend that through 2021 because 2020 was sort of the year that didn't exist in many ways in terms of projects and fundraising and everything along that line, and as such, the renewal was done through December 31st, 2021. Now, having said that again, this year has still been challenging, so the foundation has requested another extension through December of 2022. As part of that, they are looking to do additional fundraising, do additional work on the property. As you've seen, extensive work has been done to the field this past year, where they were working on some of the drainage issues and re-sowing some of the turf that's there. Council members, do you all have any questions about the lease and the resolution? I'm not going to read the whole thing, but ultimately this is us leasing this property to the Radford High School Foundation Incorporated for recreational purposes, and it is the property identified as existing tax account number 0300000425 and tax map number C-12-M-G, and formally identified as tax number C-12-N. We would like to renew this for an additional 12 months, so it would expire on December 31st, 2022. Do we have a motion to renew the lease?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We can move forward. We have 2 appropriation ordinances to consider this evening. One in the amount of $9,173 for the Radford Public Library. This is an increase in state aid. It will be used for books and subscription, and so that will help out in providing services at the library. Do we have a motion to consider appropriation ordinance 1749.14 in the amount of $9,173?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, this next one, Chief, I may ask you to come down a little bit and help us understand a little bit more about this one. We do have appropriation ordinance 1749.15 in the amount of $19,360. This is a transfer from reserves for police supplies. I believe it is going to be used for primarily rifles for our patrol officers. Chief, can you talk a little bit about that, a little bit about what's being purchased, what it's replacing, or what it's augmenting?
Sure. So this money is the police restitution money. So it's money that, our department has paid through the course of an investigation or property that's been damaged or something like that that's been granted back to us and through the courts. Currently, our rifle program, over 70% of the rifles that we have, we're utilizing through the Military 1033 program, which is basically a loaner program through the federal government. The problem with that program is they're old. We're talking Vietnam-era rifles that have seen their day, and they're breaking, and they're very aged. Not really practical for police usage today. Another issue with that program is at any time the federal government can come back and say, we want those guns back, and we're kind of stuck with no guns. So we have to start somewhere. This isn't solving the whole problem, but this will allow us to purchase 11 rifles to kind of start the ball rolling.
How many rifles do you think we ultimately need in this situation?
To fix the entire problem, probably 25.
Okay. And the rifles that are being replaced, or do we just place those into storage, or how do we dispense with those older rifles?
So the older rifles, they each, I think it's twice a year, we have to report inventory to the federal government and that we have them and the condition and things like that. So as we replace those, what we'll do is, just put those back, and, maybe in the future we may turn them back in, but until we can get everybody in our department outfitted with agency-owned weapons, we're just going to probably hang on to them for now. But again, this is kind of a start. The end goal is to get all department purchased weapons into hands of our officers, but the priority is going to be our officers on the street, the uniformed personnel on patrol. So.
And modern equipment makes sense, especially when it's something from the 21st century rather than older than I am.
They're old.
Yeah.
They're old, and they've served their purpose at one point in time. So.
Okay. Are there any other questions from council?
I want to make sure I understood what you said correctly, because it's surprising to me. 30%, only 30% are actually owned by our agency of the weapons that you have.
That's correct.
That's incredible. Oh, thank you. I thought I heard you correctly, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, and I understand where that comes from, because it's just like when we receive other military surplus or things along that line. It makes sense when they're no longer needed by a state or federal agency. But it is always good if we have our own intentional equipment and that we are modernizing where we can.
And that military program too, Mayor, I may add that each year it seems like they've kind of reduced that a little bit. I mean, this year with police reform, there was things about armored vehicles, they were taking a lot of that equipment back. So who knows what the future holds with that? They may, limit it a little more. So we're just trying to be proactive and kind of start.
All right, are there any additional questions? Do we have a motion to adopt ordinance number 1749.15 in the amount of $19,360?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to dispense with a second reading. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. David, what do you have for us this evening?
Just one quick item, Mayor. As for everybody's patience, we've got a lot of economic development and a lot of projects going on throughout our community. We're replacing water lines, extending electric service to support many of the economic development activities, and we're doing some replacements scattered out all over town as part of our annual capital improvements plan. So we do have a lot of things going on. We're trying to be careful and keep things at a minimum closed as far as streets and things like that go. Trying to keep updates, just keeping our website updated on everything that we know of as it comes along. So appreciate everybody's patience, and we should have some repairs made and a lot of good things coming our way in the next 6 months to a year.
Okay. All right. Did you have a question? Okay. Do you have anything for us this evening?
I do. I actually have a few questions for you, David, tonight. First question is a little bit just off the wall. When was the last time the our library was substantially renovated, just out of curiosity. Do you have any idea?
The recent renovation was, maybe 10, it's been less.
It's, I was going to say about 10, 15 years ago with the Radford Room, the Virginia History Room that was constructed.
Okay.
Maybe 2005, 15? Yeah. Yeah.
It's got, the library has the original and then two additions, one on the far end, which was the
Children's.
Children's
Yeah.
Center.
and young people's area, and then the one as you enter onto the side. When that building was done, I know you're thinking about the things that we've done. When that was done, Glenn Reynolds did all the update. He had done the original. We did a substantial amount of renovations to the interior of the building. So pretty much for that, it's roofs and things like that as we go along. Lighting needs to be replaced in there. That's probably our bigger thing because does not have the LED lighting like a lot of them have now, which saves you energy and you're not replacing bulbs all the time. So that's going to be probably the next thing. And then other stuff is carpet, things like that. There's normal.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking about, was also, restrooms and just making sure that the facilities are all fresh and nice and clean. And I was just curious about what a timeline for that might be looking like. I also had another question this evening. Jesse has actually been a big proponent for all of us keeping an eye out on city property and making sure that we know what it's being used for and if we are using it. And the property at the top of Jordan Avenue happens to be on my street. But that view is just so beautiful. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that property, how big it is, if there are any city uses for it right now.
It was originally a tank site.
Yep.
It's called Prospect Hill, and it's about 12 acres or so up there. I may be a little high on the number. I don't know how the city got it. Nobody seems to know. We had it a number of years. We did a study on it. Probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the city was looking at selling it, and I think it. Gosh, don't ask me to find the study because I just don't know where it might be. We might put our hands on it. I was going to say that we looked at it for residential, and it maybe had 12, 15 lots. We looked at proposals and really didn't have any takers at the time. I am looking at the real estate again now, and something we all talk about. We'll move into a late fall or winter work session to maybe look at some disposal, and maybe we can go back, looking at projects you can sell and raise money, maybe put it into, money goes to the parks or goes to the fire department or something like that.
Well, I was curious if there had ever been any studies about a recreational use for it, just walking paths or anything like that.
A little steep. The problem with that property is it's only got about 2 or 3 really good usable acres, maybe 4. And if you build a house with one front part, and the rest of it would be pretty steep. We looked at real estate at recreational uses, and other than something like a mountain biking path or something like that, it kind of took us away from Wildwood a little bit, where they really didn't get anything further. And something we can go back and look at. It's not spend any time on that.
As we have those discussions about our real estate, I would be curious if that might be something that would be a good use of the space, because the view back there in that direction really is just stunning as you're looking out over towards the interstate. And if we do, as a city, decide that it's right for us to hold on to that property, that might be a good way for us to put it to use. And the mountain biking trail is one of the things that I've thought of about for that property. So it might be something interesting for us to keep looking at.
I wonder if you could get a skate park there too.
I don't know. Jesse, there's this big flat space. There's this big flat space. I think you could. Yeah, and I will say, we've got a group of young ladies who ride around on their skateboards back in our neighborhood, and they're very impressive. I'm sure they'd love it.
I heard your collective sigh, by the way.
That's great. Actually,
just want you all to know.
as we talk
I've
about
heard it.
ARPA monies,
I just want to see Jesse on a skateboard.
I'm hoping part of that's going to be a part of it. Anything else?
Yes, last thing that I want to point out, I would ask everybody to pay attention this evening to this banner back here, the Radford City Miles for Hope. This was a banner that was prepared by some students at McHarg Elementary. And I do just want to take a moment to highlight an event that some of our police department and other community members are putting on. Detective Cross works at the police department, and she investigates some of what we can only really describe as the hardest cases that our community sees, many involving children. And she is a big proponent of child safety, and she has joined in with a group of other community members to sponsor and champion the Laps for Hope event that is going to be put on September 26th. This is a 1.8-mile run and walk to benefit the Radford City Miles for Hope campaign. This is a team of professionals that work to keep children safe from abduction, abuse, and exploitation in and around the city of Radford. Donations are going to support programs that provide for children, families, law enforcement, and social service agencies and others when they need help with a missing, exploited, or recovered child. And so this is going to be a really wonderful event, and she would love to see community support for it. Our Radford City Police Department page has links to this event and the different ways that you can support it. You can support it by making a monetary donation or join in on this Lap for Hope that's going to take place on September 26th. It's free for running or walking, and they hope to have real community buy-in. So I would love to encourage everybody to come out and support Detective Cross with the police department. We also have Sarah Campbell, who is our victim witness coordinator. She's presented here for us before. Tawny Booth is one of our probation officers. They've established a wonderful team, and I would really appreciate if we could all come out and support them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse, what do you have?
My moment of silence today was dedicated to Malvern P. Hetherington. I'm going to keep it brief because I know I've twisted your ear most of the evening, but I want to give a big thank you to Community Life Church for the very heartfelt and thoughtful notes that we all received this evening. And that'll do it.
Thank you. Onassis, what do you have?
I'm going to piggyback on that. I just want to thank Renee Rodrigo, Community Life Church, for like these. It's sometimes you feel like, we're serving the community, but sometimes you feel like you're on an island. So it feels good to be, and I don't think anyone on this council does it for recognition or a pat on the back. We do it because we want to serve this community. So to be recognized by the members of Community Life Church, Renee and Rodrigo, and their members, it feels good. It feels good. So I just want to thank them for doing that, and just thank them for the role that they serve in our community as well. So,
Thank you. Forrest?
That's really all I wanted to mention as well. Same thing. Thank you to Sea Life for these encouraging notes. It is, very encouraging.
And look closely because Radford Coffee Company is giving us a free drink. So just,
I haven't gotten to that.
I think that was in mine, actually. I think that
yeah,
was mine.
just shout out to that too. Yeah, that's right.
Well, there it is.
I wanted to add my voice to those of my fellow council members to say thank you. There are so many things that the community does that we should recognize that are a thank you or just a wonderful support. Tonight, some of the things that we talked about, celebrating Garrett and Meg Weddle for their business and the community they've built around that business, celebrating our canine officers, talking about the things that are being done to help facilitate the work on this American Legion building. There's just so many things time and again that the community steps up to do that helps make Radford the place where we want to call home. And we want to say thank you and how much we appreciate all of that. I do want to talk a little bit about the reason that we're masked this evening. Everybody's really tired of talking about COVID, but we do have to have that discussion. In the last couple of weeks, we have had hundreds of cases in the city of Radford. Fortunately, most of those cases have not been as severe, but those folks who have been getting sick have been much sicker than they were at this time last year. The hospitals are packed right now. You're probably seeing stories regionally and nationwide where folks are talking about the fact that it's tough right now for our first responders. It's tough for our medical workers. We want to keep them in our thoughts and in our hearts because this is a very difficult time. Many of the folks, primarily who are not vaccinated, although there are some breakthrough cases, many of the folks who are not vaccinated are having a really, really difficult time. I don't want to make a huge political issue out of this, but I am hopeful that we can move beyond this in the coming weeks and months. The best advice that we have from our medical professionals, from our health department, is if you have not yet been vaccinated, please consider that as a protection for yourself, for your family. And we are encouraging folks to mask. Here within the city spaces, we are requiring masking, and that is for the safety of our employees, that is the safety of our citizens. We are trying to limit the spread of this horrible disease, this pandemic that has ravaged lives, economies, businesses, institutions, organizations, just about everything you can imagine over the last 18 or 19 months. We want to get out of this sooner rather than later. And the way that we do this is through the tools that we have available to us. Vaccines can make a difference, and I hope folks will consider that. Masks do prevent the spread to a degree because they slow down the sharing of the particles that carry the COVID disease. And so we encourage folks to do that. And as such, I will go on and move us to closed session. We have a couple things we need to discuss. And Jenny, I hope this is okay that I add this additional reason on here this evening. I'll read the reason. I'd like to make a motion that we enter into closed session for Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, evaluation or performance of departments or schools, of public institutions of higher education, where such evaluation will necessarily involve discussion of the performance of specific individuals. Also, we need to go into closed session for discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3. I'd like to make a motion that we enter into closed session for those reasons. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? As such, we're going to use this space for our closed session, so we'll have to say goodbye for now. We should reconvene in just a short while, but we thank you all for coming.